As we begin week 13 of 66 and 26, we're coming to the end of the book of Genesis. Let me say a few things about these last 5 chapters and then the book of Genesis as a whole. If you remember last week, we saw Joseph reveal himself to his brothers who had come to Egypt desperate for food because of the severe famine in the land. They had not immediately recognized him, but Joseph reveals himself to his brothers who had mistreated him and sold him off. But he reassures them that he believes God sent him ahead of them to save the nation, to save many people. And that's reiterated again by Joseph in the last chapter of Genesis, when he assures his brothers after their father Jacob dies that God had intended all of this for good. That is the saving of many lives. And even though they had intended harm, God was at work in all of it. Before Joseph reiterates that, we see Jacob coming from Canaan to Egypt and then blessing the sons of Joseph, Manasseh and Ephraim. And he blesses them and receives them as if they were his own sons. And this is important because later, when the people of Israel come out of Egypt and they go to the promised land and the land is divided, then Joseph's family actually gets a double portion in the land because his 2 sons both get a portion. The tribes, the families that descend from those 2 sons, the grandsons of Jacob, receive each a portion. So we see this interesting episode also as Jacob is blessing those sons of Joseph, where he crosses over his hands, and that the hand of strength, the right hand, goes to the younger son, and the left hand goes to the older son. And this is a repeating pattern we've seen in Genesis already, and we'll see it throughout the Bible and even into the New Testament, where the older serves the younger. In the New Testament, we see this as the first will be last and the last first. And even the Son of Man, the Son of God, Jesus, comes to serve those who are lesser than him. And so we see this played out all the way into the New Testament, this pattern we see in these chapters of Genesis. Now, as we're concluding the book of Genesis, it's good to recap where we've been. We saw the creation of the world. We saw the fall into sin, very importantly, in Genesis chapter 3. We saw the flood and the Tower of Babel. We saw God, very importantly, calling one man of all the people in the world. God called a man named Abraham to be the beginning, the seed of a nation that will grow up. And God tells Abraham 2 very important things. Number 1, he is going to have descendants as numerous as the stars in the sky, as numerous as the sand on the seashore, and that he is going to have the land that God shows him, where Abraham walks, that whole land of Israel will be his. Well, as we come to the last chapter of Genesis, we realize that promise, both parts of that promise, have yet to be fulfilled. In the last chapter of Genesis, the whole family of Abraham, all of his descendants, are no longer in the land of Canaan. They're not in the promised land. They're in Egypt. And we'll find out at the beginning of Exodus that family will be enslaved in Egypt. So that promise is yet to be fulfilled. And the other promise of the descendants as numerous as the stars in the sky, that is yet to be fulfilled. We're even told in these last chapters that the number of Jacob's descendants was a total of 70 men plus the women and children, but far from being as numerous as the stars in the sky. So that promise is yet to be fulfilled as well. And so Genesis ends with us leaning forward a little bit, anticipating the rest of God's story. And we're now 1/5 of the way through the Pentateuch, the first 5 books of the Bible, and there's much more story to be told. And this finishing the book of Genesis has us leaning forward, anticipating God doing more, very much like the entire Old Testament has us leaning forward, expecting God's work in Jesus Christ. And we found this in Genesis, we'll find this even more as we move forward, that we see anticipation an expectation of God doing something amazing and much bigger than what he's doing now. And all this that's happening in Genesis and Exodus and Leviticus and so on is just a shadow, a preview of the amazing thing that God does in Jesus Christ.